Welcome.
Hello.
Just wanted to take a moment to introduce ourselves and some of the elementary principals. I'm Christy Delaglio, principal of Westmoreland School.
Nancy Schwint, principal at Warren Point.
Joe Folco, principal of Mellons.
And Mike Weaver, principal of Forest.
So our speaking points tonight are with regard to class sizes in each building. Mike will kind of flip through to show
I'm the flipper.
what each building looks like in terms of the class sizes that we currently have in our current enrollment. You'll have the opportunity to ask some questions if you'd like to.
And then once we presented each school's current numbers, we'll talk a little bit about projections. And then if you have answers throughout, feel free to jump in, and then we'll answer questions at the end. All right. So right before the winter break, each principal sent home a letter to their families with current class sizes by grade level and classroom. At Forest School, we currently have 289 students, which, having been at Forest School now for 8 years, which is a little bit hard to believe. Mrs. Navy, right? We started together. And I didn't get out of elementary school, and you've gone on to the high school. You can see, now, we've remained fairly steady over the years, but we've always dealt with classes that are in that 24, 25 student range. The thing that's most, I'll use the word alarming, at the kindergarten, first grade level, is that we typically don't see numbers of 24, 23. We typically see numbers of 20, 21. And then over time, that number increases to 24, 25. New families move in, you get new students over time. I remember, I think it was 3 years ago, one summer we got 7 fourth graders. Like, who would think you'd get 7 fourth graders at Forest School in one summer? But it happens. In my 8 years, we've always had one grade level that was a bubble grade, because we really only have room for one bubble grade as the building's currently organized, and that's in the 4th grade. As you see other buildings, and a question we've gotten in our other 2 sessions are, well, who gets the soft border students, and who sends the soft border students? And the answer to that question is everyone. We're all a sending school. We are all a receiving school. And at Forest School, we have seen the most. We've taken the most students in 4th grade. And we've also sent, since the school year started, 2 5th graders over to Lincrest School. Now, Kelly D is not here this evening. Unfortunately, she and Jill Lindsay, they had deaths in their family, so they cannot be with us tonight. Lincrest School, Nancy will also speak to. They have 256 students. When you look at Lincrest numbers over the years, this is a significant increase for them. They've typically had class sizes in the 19-20 range, and now you're seeing class sizes up in the the mid-20s, which is atypical for Lincrest School. Nancy can speak specifically to how soft borders has impacted her school and impacted Lincrest.
So these numbers that you're looking at currently for Lincrest, in specifically grades 2 and 4, those numbers are quite a bit larger than the rest, and that's because they've absorbed 13 students from Warren Point. 2 were voluntary, the other 11 were soft bordered.
And we'll jump to Warren Point now so that you can see that 2, 4. If we go back to Lincrest, you can see 22, 23, 24, 24. And in trying to keep class sizes at 25, you can see 24, 28, 24, 24, 29, 27. So could you imagine those grade levels without that policy in place? Great forward thinking by the Board of Education and the superintendent.
So in addition, since you're on our slide, I'll just continue. So currently we have 400.
I kept it.
Thank you. So actually, this is as of February 13th. As of last week, we have 468 students, but I'll speak to this slide. So 467 students. Last year in June, we ended with 421. So that's 45 more students than last year in June. Because of that growth, we've added a 4th section this year of kindergarten, which also forced us to put music on a cart. So we still have a designated art room, however, we do have music on a cart. And you'll see our numbers in 4th grade, like Mike was saying, 29, 27, 24, and in our 2nd grade, 24, 28, and 24, which has now gone to, one of those classes has gone to 25, because that's where our one new student came from. Our classes in 5th grade are 27, 26, and 24, and you can imagine, they are bigger kids. They're a lot larger, they take up a lot more room, so having 27 of them in a class does pose some problems, including the 2 adults that we have in there. There is a paraprofessional in each of the 3 sections, as well as the teacher.
Okay, so Milnes, you'll see something a little bit unique here. We have 3 grade levels that have 3 sections and 3 grade levels that have 4. 10 years ago when I arrived at Milnes, there were 3 sections across the board. So there alone, our population has grown. When I first came 10 years ago, we had 374 students. We now have 476. That being said, we also this year have soft-bordered 8 or 9 children to other schools. So you have to add those students in to see what our real population would be. What's interesting here is last year we had 3 kindergarten classes. Our 3 kindergarten classes were maxed out. Then what generally happens when parents have children that go to private kindergarten, come into 1st grade, our numbers jump up. We received 7 or 8 more students, so I needed to break that up into 4 sections. So our numbers are a little bit less in grade 1, but think about where that was a year ago. We were already at max. Our 2nd grade is at max. We actually soft-boarded, I think, 4 students out of 2nd grade to other schools. And our students in grades 4 and 5 have higher numbers as well, especially grade 4. We do have 1 self-contained class with 8 students, and those students are in grades 3 and 4. So what that means is when the students are mainstreamed for science, social studies, art, phys ed, music, those students now have to go into those classes. So those numbers then rise even more. So it's kind of interesting year to year what happens in the different grade levels. And that's Milnes School.
I have a question.
Yes,
You guys all have SGI, small group instruction rooms.
correct.
Are any of them configured that you could make them a full classroom in any way?
No.
No.
No,
My
they-
basic skills instruction room is the size of this little area right here.
So but there's no way to like take 2 SGIs and make them 1 classroom?
No.
Okay.
How about one point?
We have 1 large classroom that's being shared right now for literacy intervention. It's split by a divider that can be made into a large classroom.
And right now at Milnes, we also have art and music on a cart. Yes.
So I appreciate the indication, which is obviously concerning. My question to all of you is actually slightly different. It's more about your assessment about the readiness of kids on 5th grade to actually move into middle school.
So that's a question we've addressed in each session. So could we save that to the end? Do you mind if we do that?
We do want to address that. We
We'll
just want to
address
hear
it.
about each
Sure.
school.
Okay, but that's definitely something we'll speak to. It's a question we've gotten in each of the last 2
It's
sessions.
also next door to in education.
They're all-
Yes.
Okay.
I have the application that the Board of Education submitted to the New Jersey Department of Education, and in this report it says that one of the SGI rooms is 833 square feet. That's a very big room for single guided instruction, right?
And it may not be single guided instruction. For
Okay.
example, at Milnes, we use 1 classroom that's cut right in half, where half the room is used for reach instruction, which is gifted and talented. On the other side is a resource room. In another room that's divided in half are 2 resource room teachers teaching at the same time. In another room are 2 literacy intervention teachers teaching reading at the same time with the divider.
So you
down
have
the middle.
dividers in this room?
We have
to make it
dividers
work.
in
Okay.
5 different rooms. I actually have another room that is a full-size classroom that's divided into 5 sections. 2 speech teachers, 2 occupational therapists, and a physical therapist. So,
And do you know how many classrooms do you have for general ed?
I have 27, but again, 5 of those are taken and broken up.
So you really have 22.
At this current time, I have 22 and 1 room that is used for a special needs program, language-based learning disabilities, that has 8 students, 2 paraprofessionals, and a teacher.
So you have 21 for the general population.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jill Lindsay's not here, as we had said before. She currently has 459 students, and you see her class sizes are similar to what we've seen across district, except in those areas where we do have bubbles and classes have been broken out. As you look building to building, those bubble grade levels are grade levels where we have typically seen reception of sophomore students.
Westmoreland, okay, over the past 7 years that I've been principal there, when I first arrived, we had about 240 students. Now we're up to 310 students. Typically 2 classes per grade level with the exception of 4th grade. You'll see some of the different ranges of numbers. For example, in grade 1, you'll see one group of 26 while one is at 22. You're thinking, why such a discrepancy between those 2 classrooms? We have the privilege of hosting some self-contained programs within our school, and several of those children benefit from inclusionary practices where they will visit other classrooms for social studies and science. So it's very challenging when we have general ed class sizes of 23, 24, 25 students, and then push 4 to 5 students in for those inclusionary practices. You know, another challenge that Mr. Banter brought up in terms of the small group instruction programs, with the addition that was put onto Westmoreland School, we did add some SGI rooms. Prior to that, we had ESL and remediation programs in the hallway. So children were carrying carpet squares to ESL so they could sit in the hallway to learn, you know, English as a second language. So those are some of the challenges that we would meet if we didn't have those small group instruction rooms. Or, like you said, Joe, having 2 language arts teachers in 1 classroom, making it into a general ed classroom again, where would those programs go? So those are some of the challenges that we face in terms of enrollment, class size, and utilization of space.
So,
Yeah.
I have the same question about rooms. According to this application, you have 20 rooms, 20 full-size rooms,
Okay.
but you're using 13.
So those are the general education rooms. We also have 2 classrooms for the CI program. We also have 3 classrooms for the Stepping Stones or Autism programs. So that's 7 more rooms. And with those programs, we have SGI or small group spaces, which are dedicated for all of the therapies that the children need. So we have 2 full-time speech teachers, a full OT, a full PT. We have a resource room, things of that nature that are calculated into that number where we're using that small group instructional space for those therapies.
What is CI? I'm sorry.
CI is communication impaired.
And I'd like to thank you because you're bringing up the point that many people may not actually realize. When you see a report with the amount of full-size classrooms, you may not have an idea of what they're actually being used as. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
now let's project forward, and I apologize for not having this slide. Currently, in the 17-18 school year, grades K through 4, we have 1,882 students. Project forward 5 years to the 22-23 school year, and the demographer is projecting an additional 123 students to bring us to 2005. Take out the 5th grade. By the time it's 22-23, it's a number of about 375, and you're replacing that 375 with 123 increase of where we currently are
It's
today.
now 8:30 and session 4 has
So that's a
ended.
difference of
Absence for board members.
200
concerns to be a
students.
closed session.
250
Board members
students.
in B103 at this time.
When you have a difference of 250 students, that impacts class
Thank you all for
size
coming tonight, and don't forget.
across
to vote.
district. Let's say the demographer was dead wrong and his number doubled. Well, that's still only at 250 when we know we're moving 375 fifth graders up to the middle school. So even if he was wrong and missed it by double, we would still have class sizes that don't compare to what we have today. And if we don't move K to 5 or the fifth grade up to the middle school, take the numbers that you currently have and increase it by, or sprinkle 150 students into the classes across district. Where does that leave us? Question?
Are you gonna keep sub-borders after the referendum?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Are you gonna keep sub-borders in case the demographer is dead wrong and we have more students?
That's not an answer I can question. That's a question for the Board of Education.
And a question of the principals. Who of you are gonna take on Bradburn Crossings or whatever the name is? Because I don't think one given school will have the space to.
That's another question for the Board of Education. That's not in our area of responsibility.
You won't say me?
It's a Board of Education decision. All right. So in response to the fifth grade, I know Joe can speak to it from a instructional perspective. I can speak to it from a parent perspective. I have a fifth grader right now at home, and I have a fourth grader at home, and I have 5-year-old twins. The fifth grader, we have a K-4 model in my town and a 5-8 model. Loves middle school. He loves it from a social perspective. He feels like he's more mature. He has greater access to course offerings at the middle school level. So socially, emotionally, he feels more empowered. Academically, he's being provided with more resources in terms of what he can choose from an independent schedule.
And as an instructor, I was a 6th grade teacher at Warren Point School 24 years ago when the Board of Ed decided to reopen Thomas Jefferson Middle School as a middle school, which was a wonderful idea. They came up with the house concept, and there were about 100 students shared between 4 different academic teachers: science, social studies, math, and English. And we all shared those students, and we were able to get to know who those students were. And I love the house concept, and I'm very happy that the board is considering having that house concept come back. Thinking about 6th grade at the elementary school at that time, 12-year-olds with 5-year-olds, that was very difficult. Moving 6th grade to the middle school, 5th grade became the new kings and queens of the school. Again, at a point where they realize what their worth is. So, do I have any reservations or trepidation about it? Absolutely not, because I did live through it, and I did go through it when 6th grade went to the middle school. Absolutely loved it.
So I live, my daughter moving from Radburn, being there K to 5. She moved into 6 last year. She's honors class, she's principalist, whatever you name it. She's doing pretty well. But I can tell you, 6th grader moving to TJ was not an easy transition.
Okay. Can I say
I
something?
think actually moving the 5th grade into middle school a little bit earlier will ease that transition. Currently in 5th grade right now, we have On Common Ground and 1 or 2 other experiences for that transition. And the children really don't get the feel of what it's truly like to be in the middle school. I think by having 5th graders in the middle school setting, there are going to be lots of different transitional activities and lots of different ways to get them ready for 6th grade, more so than we have now. So I think that transition will actually be eased.
Thank you.
Can I just say something? I teach in a 5 to 8 middle school, and I teach 6th grade in a 5 to 8 middle school. Today I happen to cover a 5th grade class. But it's the second time I've covered that 5th grade class. I think the benefits, it's going to benefit not only the 5th graders, but it's also going to benefit those 6th graders, because those 6th graders are actually going to have a year beforehand, because as they grow emotionally and educationally, having that transition year, because it's all how you set it up. Because the 5th grade isn't going to act like the 8th grade. They're not going to have a schedule like the 8th grade. They're not going to have, it's truly, everything I've heard, it's truly going to be a transitional year. And it's really, I think it's going to benefit those. And I actually student taught in 5th grade at Mills. So I personally think it's going to be a benefit. And the 5 to 8 model is the second biggest model of middle schools after 6 to 8, the 5 to 8 model. And there is quite a few out there. The Hackensack, Teaneck, Hillsdale,
Paramus, Glenrock,
Paramus, I'm sorry, Paramus.
Verona.
Yeah.
Our teachers actually, and some administrators, went to go visit the 5-8 schools. And all the reports that came back, they met with administrators, they met with teachers, and they met with students. And all of the reports that came back were extremely positive.
Especially from the students. The students were psyched to talk about what a great program they were involved in.
You have to realize that the 5th graders are not going to be treated like the 8th graders.
No,
They're going to be treated like 5th graders.
Correct.
Any other questions? If you think of anything, once you leave here this evening, don't hesitate to email any of us. I'll make sure I forward all of mine to Joe, Christie, or
Delegate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.